Okay, everybody. So this is the Thursday lecture for week 2. What we're actually going to do in this lecture is cover lab 2. So let me open Notepad here so I can type random stuff. And yeah, so let's go ahead and get started. So this is going to be the video for lab 2, and we will get started. So in order to do that, let's go to lab 2 and let's download this PDF. Download the PDF. Don't know why we are not. Okay. All right, here we go. So, what this lab is going to be about is basically how to do mathematical calculations inside of a program, which you've been doing in the books, hopefully. So this is nothing new to you, but this is the lab for it. So we're going to try to uh, do some math in Java. Dot, dot, dot. Okay, so that's the idea. Um, Now, specifically, the math that we're going to go over is this. So if you have a sphere, then your sphere has a certain radius, which is denoted R here in the picture. And there's two things that you might calculate about a sphere. So the first is going to be the volume of a sphere, which is calculated with this formula here. So the volume of a sphere is 4/3 pi r cubed. And the point of this assignment is that in order to code this up, you're going to need to use the math tools that we've learned about this week. So specifically, we're going to need, double variables. We are going to need division to do the 4/3, right? Division. We're going to need multiplication because we have to do the 4/3 times a pi times r cubed. So we'll be doing multiplication with a star. And then also, we're going to be using the math library, or not library, I shouldn't call it, but the math class built into Java, which means we're going to be using math.pi probably to get the pi in the formula. And potentially, we're going to be using the power function to calculate r cubed. We could use math.pow, or we could just do r times r times r. That will also calculate an r cubed. Either way, but at least some of the math things. And anyway, using this formula, we can calculate the volume of a sphere, assuming we know the radius. Another thing we can calculate is the surface area of a sphere, which just has this formula. So that would be like if you covered the entire sphere with a sheet of paper, what would the area of that paper be? Right? So it's not a volume, it's an area. So like think of the covering, like I said, the sphere with a flat sheet of paper. What size paper would you need? And that formula is 4 pi r squared. So basically what we're going to be doing is simply writing a program that can calculate these two things here. Okay, so here's the formulas listed out again for you, and um, and then we go ahead and get started. So in order to do this, you can do this in Eclipse, or you can do it in Replit, or whatever IDE you're using. It's up to you. Um, and basically, we just want to start with a blank project. So you create a blank project either in Eclipse or Replit. So I'll do both, I guess. So in Eclipse, I will do File, New, Java Project, and I'm going to call it Lab 2, and I'm going to call it Sphere as well, just because I probably have a Lab 2 up here already. Uh, I want to have use default location checked. This can stay the way it is. This can stay the way it is. I'm going to click next because I don't think I did last time I did this. Um, there's stuff here, but we probably don't want to change too many of the settings here. So I'll just hit finish actually. So when I do this, I end up with a blank project over here, and whatever I've got open in Eclipse is still open. So now what I can do here is make sure that I've got the project selected. I always click on this source folder, but I don't know if it actually matters. And when you're selected, when you have that folder selected, you either right click here and go to new, and you can do new class, or in the file menu, you can go file new class that way. Um, when you do that, you have to give your class a name. Remember the rules for classes. So like class names. So we start with capital. And otherwise follow normal rules for naming variables and things. But we should start with a capital. So there can't be spaces, for example. So I could call this, for example, lab2 underscore sphere would be fine. I don't have to, I can call it whatever I want. There's no reason that this name has to match this name. But I'll name it lab2 sphere. We can keep public checked. We can keep none checked. Down here, um, generally you want to check this box for public static void main. If you don't, then you'll have to do more typing. So with all this stuff checked the way it is, I should be able to hit finish and create a blank project here. Now to create a blank project in Replit is even easier, as I'm sure you are aware at this point. You can simply click create. Just make sure you select Java, plain Java, and give it a name like lab2 sphere. And then we can start typing once this is loaded here. Now, one comment though is this. So you can see that this file that we're typing in has the name main.java. And if you look at my PDF here, you can see that this one said public class lab2. Now you can't like copy paste this into a new file and have it work, because if I did, if I copied all this, for example, and I pasted it here, I've got a problem because this is called lab2, but it's in the file called main.java. So you do have to be careful copy pasting because of issues like that and other issues, but that's one of them here. So like if I wanted to use this in Replit, I would have to change this to say main so that that matches that. However, we didn't need to do that at all. We could have just left the default stuff here. And the only thing we really need to add here is a section like this at the top to put in our name. So I copy pasted it, but it missed the first slash there. So oops. Also, I'll line those up nicely. So something like this. Also, you can start to see some of the issues with copy pasting from PDFs right here. Like there's an extra space here, lots of extra spaces. And those just come from copy pasting from PDFs to, regular text editors. So there's not a lot we can do about it. So you should have something like that at the top to indicate what lab you're doing. In Eclipse, of course, you can do the exact same thing at the top. Again, you don't have to remove the default stuff here. The default stuff is what we need anyway to start our code. So we got the start of a program, and then let's actually try to figure out what our program is supposed to do. So part B here says you'll be reading some numbers from the user, so add the lines necessary for you to read keyboard input, right? So the reason I'm telling you this stuff is just I'm reminding you, right? Like if you want to read the keyboard, there's a few things you need to do. So you're going to need one of these at the top of your code. Um, you can put it above your comment if you want. Notice again that it has all these extra spaces, and those spaces may or may not cause you problems. So I just always remove them. So you can put that there. In Replit, works the same way. Um, all right, what's next? So then the next thing we need to do is we need to declare the scanner variable. And all this stuff is just necessary in order to um, read things from the keyboard. So we need to, inside of main, so inside of Replit's main here, I already had like a hello world thing here. We can just remove that. We don't need that. Um, what we do need is the scanner. So scanner, and then the name of the scanner. Zybooks always uses SCNR equals new scanner system dot in. Right? Now you can just copy paste these things, but it's good to start to learn them because, it'd be nice if you could just type everything yourself rather than having to copy paste everything, right? So this is how we create a keyboard scanner that we can now use. Now, we will need to read a variable as a double. Now, I showed you how to read in a double here, but you don't want to just put a line like this in your code. You want to tell the user that they're supposed to type in a number, right? So rather than just asking, not rather, sorry, rather than just reading the keyboard, you should first do a system.out.println, and you should use that to tell the user what to do. So you could say, enter the radius of the sphere, something like this. And you can use system.out.print or system.out.println, put a semicolon at the end of the line. That way, when you run your code, it will ask you to enter the radius of a sphere. Right now, I need to add this also. You don't do it in Eclipse and Replit, but I'm doing both. So I can just put those there. So of course, if I run this here, we'll get the same result. Just faster, enter the radius of the sphere down in the console, or over in the console, depending on where you have the console. By the way, if you lose the console, like you close it like this, and then we run our code, then the console will probably come back. If it doesn't, then you can check in Window and in Show View, you can find the console. And if you select it, you can make that go. You can make it reappear. Also, same thing for the left-hand panel here. Sometimes people will close it and it disappears and they don't know where it went. And if that happens to you, you want to go to the window menu and you can just do, what is it, show view, and then that thing was called the Package Explorer was what it was called. So if you click on Package Explorer, that left-hand panel will come back if you lose it. All right. So anyway, we have told the user to type in a number, and once we tell the user to type in a number, then we can read the number. So we need to read a double. So we need to create a variable first of all. We can call it R or we can call it radius. It's up to you. If we say radius, then we'll have more typing later on. And then we read a double. So the way you read a double is you put the name of your scanner. So ours is called SCNR dot next capital D double. There we go. So if I run this, now it will tell me to enter the radius of a sphere. And if I click in this box, you'll see that there's a cursor waiting for me to type in the number. So I can type in a number and hit enter. Now, at that point, you might notice this is terminated here. That's because the program finished. Because all we did was ask for the number and then stop. But we asked for the number and then stopped, but we can now find out what the next thing to do is. So after we have done that, then we want to calculate the surface area and the volume using math. So we just want to implement the formulas. So I can just copy this or type it. I guess it doesn't matter which. Double surface area equals, and then now I put in my formula. So you just look up the formula, and the formula is right here for surface area. It's 4 times pi times r squared. So you just need to write the code for that. There's nothing to this, right? 4, which you should write as 4.0. Remember, and when you're using floating point numbers, you should always put the decimal point in, even if it's 0. And then times pi. Now you could type in pi, that'll be fine. But also, there's a built-in constant, math.pi, that will be the correct value. So 4 times pi. And then finally, we need r squared. Now, the easiest way to do this is just r times r, right? R times r is r squared. So I guess let's just do that. We'll use the pow function on the other one. So that's it. We calculated the surface area. Now, the other thing we need to calculate was the volume. So to calculate the volume, we need to look at the formula for volume, which is right here. So 4/3 pi r cubed. 4 over 3 pi r cubed. So the way that would look like is 4.0 divided by 3.0, so there's 4/3, times pi, which is math.pi, times, so we have 4 over 3 times pi, 4 over 3 times pi, and then we need r cubed. Now for r cubed, you can just do it this way, r times r times r. If we want to use the pow function, that would be math.pow, and then it would be r and 3. Now, while I was typing this, I realized that we did this wrong because I typed in r's, didn't I? I typed r and r and r. But up here, I call the radius radius. So either I have to change all these r's down here to radius, or I can just change this to r if I'm being lazy. So that's the path of least resistance, so that's what I'll do. But that's the sort of thing you have to pay attention to when you're coding these things up is, uh, the formula here might have a lowercase r, but in your code, maybe you didn't use a lowercase r. And so you have to be careful not to, what are the actual variable names in your program. All right, so at that point, this is going to be r to the third power, math.pow r3. And so I believe we are calculating these just fine. So once we calculate them, let's see what we do. All right, so tells me what to do, the actual lab. All right, so basically we do everything that we did, and then it says we want to print out something like this. For a sphere with radius, blah, 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 the surface area is blah, 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 the volume is blah, blah, blah. And I guess I didn't say it, but did I say how many decimal points to use or something, places? I guess I didn't say. Yeah, so I guess I didn't say to do a specific number of decimal places, so we don't have to. I probably will use I probably will use printf and print to like maybe 2 decimal places. So let's do that. So the first line's supposed to look something like this. So what I'll do is I will just actually copy the entire line, and then over here in my code in Eclipse, I guess, what I'll do is I'll do a system dot out dot printf, and in double quotes we put the thing that we want to print. Now I hit the autocomplete in Eclipse. I'm going to delete everything. So um, if I just do this, it's going to say for a sphere with radius 5, but it's not always going to be 5, right? So this 5.0 should be a placeholder. And so for the placeholder that will print a floating point number to 2 decimal places, it would be percent dot to f. So that's going to be a 2 decimal place placeholder. The colon is just a colon. Um, and I want to end the line after this, so I'll put a backslash and an in. So that completes the text that I want to print. And then what this is supposed to do is it's supposed to fill in a number here for the percent 2f. And the number is supposed to be the radius because it says for a sphere with radius blank. So the radius is stored in the r variable. So after this, I end the double quote and I put comma r. So at this point, we can just double check that this is working. So you do run, enter the radius. I have to click down here, type in the radius. So I'll type in, I don't know, 8.0. Hit enter, and it says for a sphere with radius 8.0, and then I'm going to print the surface area and the volume below. But I just verified that this is actually working correctly. So once it is, I'm going to need a very similar line to print out the surface area and the volume, right? So since I know I'm going to need a very similar um, line, I may as well just copy this entire line here with Control C, paste it twice, and we'll just modify this. So the text should be for a sphere with radius blah, and then this should be something like the surface area is, and then a number. Now the number should not be r, the number should be, if this is surface area, the variable for my surface area, which was surface area. So, oops, so down here I go surface area. And then the third line, I'll change the text as well. It should say the volume is blank, or not blank, but fill in the number. And then we shouldn't print R, we should print the volume. So you change that R to volume. And I think that's it. So if we run this, enter the radius of a sphere. By the way, you can click anywhere in here. You don't have to click you don't have to click where you want to type. Like I can click way over here. And then even though it's right, the cursor looks like it's right there, it'll actually be in the right place when I type in the number. So if I type 5.0 and hit enter, it says for a sphere with radius 5.0, the surface area is 314.16, the volume is 523.60. And then I can compare that to what I have here, and everything's the same, except I notice I've got these extra colons on the end that were left over from that first line. So there you go. I think that's fine now. So this code works. And of course, if I have the same thing here in Replit, I can replace all of that. Then the same program will work in Replit as well. Notice I copied the inside of the main, but I left the top because I didn't want to upset the class name there. So we'll run this just to show that it works here. We'll put 10.0, enter. And there we go, sphere with radius 10, surface area is 1256, volume is 4188. All right, so there we go. Now, I'm not going to go over turning this in really, but you should know the drill now. Well, actually, I guess maybe I will. So to turn this in, remember that you have to get the file first of all. So if you're getting the file from Replit, you would click the three dots and click download. Um, Save as. This can save right here. And call it lab 2 main because I already have one in there from before. Um, if you are getting the file from Eclipse, it's harder. Hopefully I've done this in the videos that you've seen already, but what you'll have to do is you'd have to generally what you will do is where's our lab? Right here. So normally what you'll do is click on your name, the source, the package, find your file, lab2 sphere, and on that file, right click or go to file, right click and go to properties or go to file, properties. And when you're in the properties, it will have a location listed. And if you click the little button next to that, then it will open an Explorer window uh, to the file. Now, something that happens depending on your operating system, sometimes it will open directly to the folder that has that file, and sometimes it will open to the folder here. Um, if you see something like this, then what you're going to need to do is double click on source, and that's where the file will be is in the source folder. So that's where that is. Um, so when we go to turn this in, that's Twitter. When you go to turn this in, of course, I have to do student view. You will drag the file there. So whichever one you use, Replit or Eclipse, you need to find the source folder. And once you find the source folder, probably just drag it over. However, that's not the only file you need for this assignment, because if you look, um, it also says you need a screenshot in JPEG or PNG format uh, showing your code outputting a correct answer to the problem. That means uh, either I need to run it like this and have the result over here, or in Eclipse, we cancel that. We ran it and you can see there. So you need to screenshot this basically. You can screenshot everything or you can just screenshot the small portion of the console, whichever way you like. So yeah, so there's different ways to screenshot in Windows. Well, I'm using Windows 11, but in Windows 11, um, what you'll do is you will hit Shift Windows key S, brings up the Windows snipper thing, and I have it on the one that will do a rectangle, so then I can drag a box around it and screenshot that way. And then you need to go find that screenshot file in your wherever it goes. Although it didn't pop up right, it didn't quite do the right thing there, I'm realizing. I think it's because Zoom is running. So I guess I can't screenshot at the moment with Zoom running for some reason. But hopefully you can screenshot that. If you have problems, you can let me know. But I'm supposed to screenshot just showing that I ran the code, and that is supposed to be submitted the along with your Java file. So I'd have to go find that file from the screenshot, which is probably honestly in probably in one of the pictures folders. I think there's a pictures and then a screenshot is where I think that goes.